Hey everyone, it's Hannah from Daisy Farm Crafts, and today I wanted to show you how to work the stitches for this velvet chandelier blanket. I made this blanket with Bernat baby velvet yarn. So the main color, this misty gray, I used 2 of these bigger 10.5 ounce skeins, and then for each of the colors, I did 2 sections of each color, and I think I have 6 different colors. But I only needed basically 3.5 ounces. So if you have colors in these smaller skeins, that's plenty. Or if you just have leftovers from these bigger skeins, that's would be plenty to do your colors. And to make this blanket, I'm using a size H 5mm hook. And for more information about the finished size of the blanket and the exact colors that I use, please visit daisyfarmcrafts.com for the full written pattern. All right, let's get started. All right, so to get started on this blanket, whatever your main color is, you're going to want to chain a multiple of 6 and then add 5. So I, just for this video, I'm going to chain 17 as my base chain. And in the real blanket, I chained 107. And that ended up with the border, I think about 30 inches wide. 3, 16 and 17. All right, and for this blanket, we're gonna use the wide half double crochet stitch. Sometimes we call it half double crochet in between the posts. So we're gonna start in the 3rd chain from the hook. You're gonna yarn over, insert your hook into that 3rd chain. You know, it can be a little bit hard to see with the velvet. Pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So while we're working our chain, this is just regular half double crochet, and it'll be on the next row. What makes it a wide half double crochet is just where we insert our hook. So again, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. All right, and then when you go into that last chain, then we're going to chain 2 and turn. And now this is when we're going to start inserting our hook in between the posts. Instead of going into the top of a half double crochet, you'd probably be going through these top 2 loops, which are really hard to see with the velvet. So we're just going to be working in this space that's underneath the stitches and in between. This is the post, if you can see right there, of the row below. So we're going to just insert our hook into that first space and just work a half double crochet. And then over here, we're gonna work into that next space where it's sort of under all 3 loops of the half double crochet of the previous row. And it can be tricky to see with this velvet yarn. You kind of have to just feel it out and feel for that space that's underneath this stitch. And we like to use this stitch with velvet because it helps to, well, number one, so it's easier to see where to insert your hook so you don't have to find the top of that stitch. But it also just helps to keep things nice and tight since this velvet is a little bit slippery, and sometimes and with other stitches you can get some loops pulled up, but we found that this stitch really helps to keep things in place. All right, and then when you get to the very end, you're going to work into that last space that's between the last stitch and the turning chain. Just work 1 half double crochet into that space, and then again we're going to chain 2 and turn. All right, and then we're just going to work 1 more row of that wide half double crochet with your main color, and then I will show you how to add in another color to make those vertical lines. All right, so you should have 3 rows of the wide half double crochet with your main color, and then we'll chain 2, turn, and start on that 4th row. And basically we're going to work 3 stitches of gray, and then 3 stitches of a color, and then 3 gray, 3 color, 3 gray. So I'm going to get my teal yarn ready over here on my left. Oops. And we're still working wide half double crochet. So there's 1, 2, 3, and now I'm going to drop this gray yarn for a second, and I'm going to bring in this teal. So I'm going to leave myself a tail that I can weave in later. I'm going to grab the yarn on my hook like this, and then pull through all 3 of those loops. Now you might need to pull this gray a little bit tight. So I'm going to leave this tail hanging out, and that's something I can weave in later. But I'm going to take this gray yarn and I'm going to lay it across the top of my work, and I'm going to crochet over it. So still inserting my hook in between the posts, and work 3 wide half double crochets with this teal color, and I'm just laying the gray across the top of my work. All right, and since I have my teal on my left side, since I don't want my yarn to get twisted, I'm going to pull it to the front and then keep my yarn, or my gray yarn, to the back so it stays on that side. And before I start crocheting with the gray, it helps a little bit just to give this an extra tug, just to make sure that it's tight and that it kind of pulls this stitch all the way so that you don't have any extra loops pop up. So pull that yarn tight and then pull the teal to the front. And now grab your gray and to finish off that 3rd teal stitch. Now we're going to pull this one tighter, and now we're going to carry the teal yarn and crochet over it. So 1, 2, 3. And we're going to drop that gray for a second and bring the teal. And now pull this gray and lay it along the top. 1, 2, 3. Now bring this yarn to the front. Give your gray a nice tug. Make sure that that last gray stitch gets nice and tight. And then we'll work 3 more gray. 1, 2, and then our last stitch in between the last stitch and the turning chain. All right, so now we're going to chain 2 and turn. And we're still going to just keep doing the same thing that we were doing. You're going to kind of pull this teal yarn around the side and keep crocheting over it. So again, we're going to work 3 gray, 2, 3, pick up our teal, give myself some more slack. And now 3 with the teal. Bring it to the front. One, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. Pull that, tug on that gray, make sure it's nice and tight. All right, and then our last 3. Okay, so you're just going to keep repeating that pattern of 3 gray, 3 color, 3 gray, 3 color, and carrying or crocheting over whichever color you aren't using. And as you can see in my real blanket, your yarn does peek through a little bit, the carried yarn. Which, you know, might bother you at first, but once you kind of get the whole blanket done, it really tends to blend in. If it does super bother you, another way to cover up your carried yarn is when you get to the next row, you can insert your hook not only in the in between the post space, but also underneath the yarn that was carried before. So it'll make a little bit of a deeper stitch, but it does also help just to cover up that carried yarn a little bit more. It's a little bit more time consuming, but if you want to put in that effort, that's totally another way to do it too. I personally don't really mind bits of yarn peeking through. I think it kind of adds to the whole shimmery look of the velvet, but that's really all you need to know to make this blanket. You're just carrying yarn along each section of color. So you're going to do 8 rows of color to make these little dashes, and there's 3 rows of gray, in between each section of color. And then when you're finished, I just put a front and back post double crochet ribbing border on, which always works up really nice in velvet. I love to use it with velvet. It's another good stitch that helps keeps things nice and tight. And I will put a link to the video for this border in the description. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy making this blanket, and if you do, please take a picture and come share with us on Facebook or Instagram. We'd love to see. Thanks so much. Have a good day.